I think now is a great time to share a fun fact that me and Sarah actually met through running.
Yeah.
We met outside of Rice.
I had no idea Kayla was a Rice student when I met her. Hi, welcome to Quad Talk, a look into Rice Grad Life. I'm Sarah and I'm a Ph.D. student in the Department of Environmental Engineering.
Hey everyone, my name's Kayla and I'm also a graduate student in the Electrical and Computer Engineering department.
So first, let's talk a little bit about what made us get into graduate school.
So I was first inspired to pursue graduate school after taking a class in undergrad. I studied electrical and computer engineering and biomedical engineering, which is a very interdisciplinary area. And I took a class on introduction to neuroengineering, and I discovered that this was the perfect space in which I could combine these two interests together. Mm-hmm. And I was looking more into how I could work in this field in the future, and one of the best ways was to go to graduate school and get more experience working in research labs. In order to be able to work in this very niche space. What about you?
Yeah, you're playing the long game. I got into graduate school kind of through research more so than like the area of research. When I entered college, I had a student worker job in a lab. And so I kind of learned to love like the process of research before the research itself. And I was really lucky to enjoy the research I did and want to follow that as a passion into graduate school. And I work more in like water engineering in chemical engineering and environmental engineering. And so that was easy to follow, but before college, obviously I had no exposure to labs. So that was like, I loved the process of like using my hands to create data that was meaningful in like a physical process. That was science.
So you mentioned that you're really interested in water research. What excites you the most about this field, and like what inspires you about your research?
Yeah. I mean, I think with water, like water is quite literally everywhere and everything, which is an obvious thing to say. But my undergraduate research worked with more like international water crisis things, like not having access to clean water and the implications that has on like developing nations, to where now my work focuses more on like decontamination of things that are real problems in the United States and obviously worldwide, but even here in Houston, Texas. And with water research, there's all sorts of sectors, even though it's kind of like one area. So finding a niche in that has been exciting, and it's like, everyone goes home and showers and washes their dishes and drinks water to stay hydrated. So it's a very applied thing that's easy to see the meaning in for me.
Yeah, you can make a really big impact.
Yeah, what about you? Totally different.
So since I took a psychology class in high school, I have been really inspired and intrigued by the brain. It's one of the most complex, it is the most complex organ in the human body, and it's a huge unsolved mystery of how the brain translates into like different personalities or different psychologies or different ways that people experience the world. And so I'm really inspired to work in this field to better understand the brain, because it's such a complex system, and also to use technology in further understanding the brain through like engineering and technology. We can help better understand neurological disorders, and when things go awry, it's a very impactful space to be able to gain further insight into the workings of the brain and help people.
Yeah, I liked how you called it an unsolved mystery. I think a lot of like grad school, especially like in the like neurospace, is totally, I mean, it's very mysterious to me.
Yeah. Yeah, long ago I heard of this thing called the greatest engineering challenges of the day, and water is
that's like the UN sustainability goals, like things that are global problems.
Water is on there, like reverse engineering the brain, like creating sustainable energy, like all these super challenging topics are on there. But I think that it's cool
to hear that too, because like I'm sure there's like lots of lists of like, top problems facing humanity, or, whatever the title would be. And it's interesting to think that like in grad school, odds are people working on pretty much all of those problems.
Yeah.
Like I had known nothing about the brain, but other than it's in my head. But I mean, like you know so much and are like truly like uncovering some of like the new information that could impact humanity.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
And same with you.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about chemistry and water and the environment, but it's like part of survival and like thriving as in life. We need those things.
Yeah, it's cool to think like things that are mysteries, like there's people working to solve them, and at the end of the day, it's kind of grad students. Like I guess I don't think of myself like that, but that's how I see you, like like trying to uncover this like unknown information that's productive for society. It's really cool.
Yeah. So grad school though it's a challenging experience, because we are working on hard problems and have to figure out how to get there along the way. It's really challenging, but it's really rewarding.
I agree.
And I feel really grateful for the experience, and I feel like we're really lucky that Rice is such a supportive community and interdisciplinary environment where we can thrive.
Yeah, I agree.
So what have been some of your biggest challenges in grad school, or what do you find the most difficult?
Yeah, no, I think you touched on it a little bit there with like not knowing the answer. I think being a graduate student, like the special opportunity is you kind of get to say, okay, there's this problem that I care really deeply about and I really want to know the answer to, whether that, and like that's very like vague and broad and kind of like mystical. And then your job is to be like, okay, I'm going to go see what concrete steps, whether that be like computational or like literally in the lab, like pipetting or, like doing certain studies on like bio, I don't know exactly, but like finding that and then seeing how certain data can like, answer a hypothesis that you or someone in your lab or your advisor had, and then like go there. But that gap is for sure the hardest part of grad school, and like the not knowing, because there is no answer. Like you just have to try and try and try and try and try. And so I think the hardest part of grad school is also the most rewarding part. I think you touched on that earlier, and it's really, really true.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I was thinking of a couple like words of advice for prospective students or for current graduate students, and I think, or I guess for prospective students, like you said, one of the important things to do is to get experience going through the whole process of understanding a problem, figuring out the tools of like how you can answer those problems, and then coming to a completion of like coming to completion of a project. Yeah. And that's something that is really helpful for preparing for graduate school, whether it's doing a capstone project in school, or a summer internship, or a project at home of anything fun and interesting. It's just pursuing that curiosity and taking it all the way to the end is great training. Yeah, no, definitely good training to like. I always think back to like we both work in STEM fields, so this is a pretty like direct comparison. But you learn like the scientific method, which is like hypothesis, whatever the steps are in like the second and third grade, and then you don't think about it for like a decade. And then in grad school, you're like, oh my god, you're right. Like this is what I needed to do all along. But that path is like very rarely linear. It's like hypothesis, test, failure, hypothesis, test, failure, test, failure, test, failure, test, failure, hypothesis, test. Oh, good data. And then it's like, okay, like let's follow that. And then like, it's like sometimes it can feel like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I think it's just how progress is made. Like these problems are hard for a reason. Yeah, like you said, it's very rarely linear. And so it's so important to build up your grit and perseverance. Yeah. It teaches you a lot. Graduate school teaches you a lot in that. But yeah, so I guess for how do you maintain work-life balance?
I think
in grad school.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm perfect at it, but I think finding grad school is very all-consuming. Like I always say, like your PhD is really hard because it can be really lonely because like the work is you. It's not like necessarily like, I don't know, a different job where there's like specific tasks to complete that you can, you know, contribute to like some sort of corporation that has a checklist for you to do, or you and the other person have the kind of same job and you're working as a team. Like it's kind of you and your brain, and then you go home and it's still you and your brain. And so it can be kind of hard to like separate that. And so I think for work-life balance, one thing that's really helpful is like finding other ways to use your brain. So whether that be like, you know, outdoor activities or social events or new hobbies, I think like a lot of times grad students are, you know, kind of hyperactive, you know, people that like to be doing. And so finding other outlets is really important. And like, you know, setting boundaries of like, you know, I enjoy this part of my life and I'm going to keep that important, even though grad school is very all-consuming and hard. And I think that's a really hard lesson to learn. And I think it will take me the entire PhD plus the rest of my life.
Yeah, even, so I'm starting my 5th year right now, and even though I'm so far along in grad school, I still feel all the time that I have no idea what I'm doing. That feeling never really goes away, but you just manage it.
And I also think it's hard because like, you know, just because right now I'm able to prioritize work a lot because, you know, the rest of my life's looking calm, you know, life happens and things change. And so that work-life balance with grad school is really hard because things change while your job is also changing, your, you know, job, school, whatever it is. So I think that's a really hard thing to manage. Do you have any kind of like, I guess, excerpts about things that are part of your life outside of work that have like made you understand Rice and Houston better?
I think now is a great time to share a fun fact that me and Sarah actually met through running. We met outside of Rice.
I had no idea Kayla was a Rice student when I met her. And we bonded over the PhD.
Likewise. And so around my 3rd year of grad school is when I was looking for an outlet, looking for a way to maintain work-life balance. And so I lived in Rice Village, which is like right next to campus. And I heard that there's a run club that happens every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Right in Rice Village. So I decided to go and just check it out. And I made a couple friends and ran around the Rice Loop. Like a 3-mile loop.
Gorgeous, very lucky to have it.
Beautiful part of Houston, beautiful part of campus. And the habit kind of just stuck. And I've been super fortunate to have the hobby of running as a way to like make lots of friends and meet lots of people around Houston and explore the beautiful
I agree.
city.
I mean, I have the same kind of story as you. Like, oh, I got to grad school, found running. I feel most runners are like, I love running. It's true though. And I think it's like with work, back to the work-life balance thing, running like instills in you like a sense of purpose outside of like, not really anything, which is silly in a way, but also very meaningful. But yeah, we met in running.
So. It's really rewarding in the way that it's like, you actually do get to linearly improve. Over time. while grad school is
Even
all over the place.
Fail.
It's a roller coaster, Even if your experiments fail on a Monday, you
still have a good run.
You still have a good run. And
I consider hang out with my girls at the run.
Meet up with your friends and enjoy time outside. And as you stay consistent with the hobby, then you see yourself improving, and it's really rewarding to have that experience.
I think that's true. Even though I feel like we have the same, like running is like our main hobby outside of school, there's lots, like I have friends that do, other endurance sports also. I feel like that's a common theme between graduate students and endurance sports, but people who get into like craft clubs or like gaming or like a lot of grad students like to travel, and that's everyone kind of has their different thing, which is cool.
Yeah. Speaking of traveling, have you traveled for conferences for grad school? And
Yeah.
what was that like?
Yeah, I've had a really lucky experience, I feel, with graduate school. And I feel like a lot of Rice students, because of the personalized support you get here, do get to use these special opportunities to travel while you're here. So after my first year, actually through the Office of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, I got a fellowship to travel with Engineers Without Borders to Ecuador.
Oh, wow.
And go with them to go to a small community and do their surveying for a water system, because I did this research on a totally different part of the water sector, but that interest allowed me to go and help the engineers over there with my graduate work and ability to run simple field tests. Yeah. So that was really cool. And then outside of that though, academic conferences, I feel like Rice pushes their students to go to these both for the networking and for the exposure and practice in scientific communication. Mm-hmm. And so I've gotten to go to a couple of those big national ones. And then I also got to go with my advisor to China, which was really amazing.
Wow.
I got to go kind of as a coordinator / assistant of this panel. And then afterwards, we kind of collected all the information and the opinions that we'd had about the topic of the conference, and we wrote a paper out of it, which was also a great experience. Oh. So I've had really lucky time traveling both around the United States and internationally in grad school. You?
I was going to say, I remember hearing about that, and you got to collaborate with other universities too for that paper. Mm-hmm. So that's so awesome.
Yeah, I'm really lucky for that experience. It was great.
I've been fortunate to attend the Society for Neuroscience conference every year, and this is the largest conference in my field of neuroscience. So there's people from all parts of the field, including biology, technology, engineering, ethics, and everything. And so I've gotten to present at a Society for Neuroscience in San Diego, which is a beautiful place to be, as well as Chicago. Yeah. And it's a really fun experience to travel and get to meet all researchers from around the world and make connections and feel seen by other people also in the same position as you. And passionate about the same topics.
Yeah, that's true. That's a special thing about graduate school and being able to attend conferences is oftentimes in your lab or in your department, you're the only one working on your specific project, because obviously you need diversity within the department. But when you go to conferences, you can find people from other universities whose work aligns really well with yours. Yeah. And it's oh my gosh. My twin flame from across the country.
Yes, I've had that moment before too, where you're wait, you work on this too?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh,
and you've had the exact same problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so nice to be able to connect with people about that. So what made you decide on attending Rice?
I think with most people deciding to attend graduate school, it is kind of a very individual process, what makes you choose a graduate school, whether you're really firm in what you want to do, or you really know where you want to go, or a lab that you want to work in, and if that's a good fit. But for me, I did water research in undergrad, and I knew I wanted to continue on that path, maybe not on the exact same linear sector of international water, but Rice had a collaborative institute it was called NEWT at the time, it's now called RWI. And it was basically just using nanotechnology for water treatment. And that was what I did at the time. And I was oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. So I applied, and immediately I just saw the collaboration within Rice. And I knew coming from an engineering or chemical engineering background and transitioning into environmental engineer, I knew I wanted to bridge that gap and continue bridging gap between that and also chemistry and policy at times and other things like that. And I saw Rice really really emphasized on collaboration. And it's evident both when you talk to people from Rice and when you're here. When you're here in any room, in any meeting, there's going to be people from just different departments. Even my advisor, both of my advisors are listed in multiple departments, and they teach classes in way totally different things, but they're still able to work together and do productive research. And so that really drew me to Rice. It's also, beautiful here, and I could see myself really enjoying living here. So.
Yeah, it's always, the deciding where to go to grad school is always such a combination of factors.
Yeah, a ton.
Based on what you value and your what field of study and where
you want to go,
where you want to live,
who you
like
talk to, yeah,
where you see yourself in for the next 5 years.
Yeah,
that's always
at
the biggest
least.
question. But yeah, I had a similar experience to you where I was really interested in neuroengineering, and Rice has a neuroengineering initiative, which I didn't know about before. I learned about it through it was during COVID times, and so I attended a virtual conference for the graduate engineering minority fellowship called the GEM program, which Rice is a huge sponsor of the GEM program, which has been a really great resource here for me. But so I first learned about neuroengineering at Rice through this virtual conference, and they reached out to me, or the representative there like messaged me directly and was like, hey, we have this this program within Rice, check it out. And that was what first set me on the path to like, okay, right, like put Rice on the map for me. And then
do you think like, or I guess while we're talking about applications, would you have any like advice to people applying to graduate school right now or looking to apply to graduate school in the coming year or two?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty individual process where you have to do a lot of research to figure out what's out there, figure out even the lay of the land.
Do a lot of research to figure out where you want to research.
Yeah, for sure. Make a spreadsheet, keep track of all the what school options there are, and then specifically for each school, I liked to keep a list of like 3 names of professors who I would be interested in working with, because you don't want to be too locked in on one professor in the case that they're not taking students that year or they don't have funding or any other case.
And odds of collaboration with them are not zero if you do end up like attending in their department.
Yeah, and if you find a school where there are multiple professors that you're interested in working with, then that's a good deal. Yeah. Was your program rotational at all, or did you directly match?
No, it's a direct admit program, but I'm co-advised. So I kind of came in knowing I was going to have one advisor. I got here and he was like, hey, I think you'd actually benefit from like also working with this other advisor. And I met with her and it was like, oh my gosh, like I can see exactly how like this person would fit into like what I want to do and be a great advocate for me like in this time and like in the future. And so, yeah, I guess I felt really seen in that moment, which is another like, green flag coming to Rice. Did you rotate?
Yeah, so the electrical engineering department, we do at least 3 rotations in our first semester, and then like a capstone project during the second semester as to like officially match with the professor. And so I rotated with a couple labs, but I came in already having an idea of who I wanted to work with. Like I had emailed the professor before, and and when I visited, I got to meet the students and felt really welcomed, and like it would be a good environment with positive mentorship to guide me through graduate school. And so
I think for one thing, going back to like the application process, I would recommend, especially if you're like a school is on your short list, I think talking to like the advisors themselves, not always, they're not always they're busy, basically. Advisors are busy people, but you can always try and talk to the graduate students. That's something I did during my application. And usually they'll also be very, very honest with you. If you want to know like, oh, like, what are the typical hours of someone in that lab? Or what does your day in the life look like? That's something I used to always ask graduate students. And it was really telling if they're like, most graduate students had a positive experience here at Rice. So they'd be like, oh, I get the freedom to work on this or that. Or some people are, more assigned a project. So, and that totally works for different personality types and what kind of research you want to do. But graduate students are pretty honest. So I would recommend talking to them, to applying students.
Yeah, that's great advice. Speaking of choosing the right mentor and kind of having a vision for yourself for the future, what do you hope to do after graduate school?
Yeah, I think that's something that I wasn't 100% sure of coming into graduate school. I knew I wanted to continue my education. I, went through college having industry internships and going through job offers and kind of like seeing what's going to happen. And when I came here, I guess all I ever knew was industry, so I was like, oh, I'll go to industry. But then very quickly I realized like the part of this that I love was like the discussion and setting objectives and hypothesizing. And so now I have to stay in academia and hopefully become a professor, a research professor, and get to continue like pursuing these big scientific problems. But yeah, I think there's lots of things you can do with a PhD, quite literally anything. What about you?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I would say I had a similar experience where during undergrad I had industry internships, and then during grad school, getting to do research has been so engaging and exciting, and just like the endless exploration is really rewarding. And I think I want to combine those two things in the future. So go on to do research and development in industry.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, working on device development for neuromodulation.
Yeah.
So hopefully working in the neurotech field.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense with your department. That's cool.
So what is it like for you living in Houston? How was it transitioning to living in this city, in Texas?
Yeah, in Texas. We're Texans now. So I grew up in the suburb of Chicago, and then I did my undergrad in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at LSU. And so I will say, like, the climate, like literally like weather-wise, between Louisiana and Texas is very similar. So for me, like the mild winter, hot summers was not a big adjustment, but I do find a lot of people say the biggest adjustment moving to Texas is the weather, because it is a little hot and humid here.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, springtime in Texas is one of the most gorgeous things.
That's
the
my
most gorgeous time of the year. But yeah, I love Houston. I think coming here, I was a little nervous that it is the fourth biggest city. And like when you compare this to like a Chicago, you think skyscrapers, people bustling around a city, not a lot of green space, or not a lot of varied green space. And Houston's totally different. I find like there's a kind of a neighborhood feel in a lot of Houston, which is like really lovely. And it's like truly so diverse in Houston. I think it's the most diverse city I've ever been to. And so that was surprising. And obviously like with that comes a lot of advantages, like a lot of cool cultural experiences you can have, like I think the best food in the world.
Yeah.
Whatever you could possibly want, the best of it.
I was going to ask,
Houston.
what is your hidden gem of Houston?
Food. All the food. Like literally anything you could ever want, they have like a top, like a 5-star place for it.
Yes, so true.
Yeah, food, drinks, like Houston just has such a good like enjoy life vibe about it, which I think is surprising, and I love it. And I'm glad I get to live here. What about you?
Awesome.
Do you like living here?
Yeah, it's really grown on me. I'm originally from California, and then I did my undergrad in Pittsburgh, so kind of like going across the country, and then ended up in Houston.
Back in the middle.
Yeah, all over the U.S. And it took me a little bit of time to get used to the heat and humidity for sure. Like you were saying, like the summers felt kind of reversed to me. Yeah. Where I'm like, oh, summer is the time to be outside and explore, just be outside all the time. But in the humidity, we make it work. So it's kind of like early mornings, or like enjoy the summer nights, which is really fun. Oh, one of my favorite things about Houston is the outdoor space. So all the parks. Rice is right next to Herman Park. I actually get to bike through Herman Park on my commute to work every day. Yeah, so it's really beautiful. They have a zoo in there, a Japanese garden, lots of fountains, and
running trails
for sure. And I just love the green space in Houston and also in the Rice campus.
Yeah, that's the other thing, honestly, coming to Houston, that it was so surprising, because Rice is very much a city campus, but it's very much like a contained college. Like there's like, even within Rice, there's the art museum and like the art installations and this green space, like, the newly redone quad, like this is a gorgeous place to just spend time outside. So even though it's a city campus, I feel like here it doesn't feel like you're in the middle of the fourth largest city of the United States, which I love.
Something that I really missed about California was being able to go hiking, go to the mountains, go to the beach. So I was missing that for a little bit, but then I discovered at Rice there's the Rice Outdoor I forget what it stands for.
Rope.
Rope. There's the rope.
It's an acronym. I don't know what the acronym is.
So ROPE hosts guided tours or guided nature adventures and trips. So I went backpacking for the first time ever in the Sam Houston National Forest, and that was really fun. And they also have trips to go kayaking or paddleboarding or hiking. Yeah. And everything is covered. You get a ride there and perks. Yeah. Perks being and you don't have to own any gear beforehand. Like you can borrow the backpacks, some sleeping pack. It's like a camping trip. And so it's a lot of fun.
I know outside of the program, so you can like rent their stuff, which I've done before, which is super nice. Yeah. Because I don't have the space to house a tent.
Do you go to the rec?
Yeah, very early. We're an outdoors girl. But the Rice Rec is a really nice place to like have so close to my office. You know, if I'm ever like having writer's block or
and you can
a failed experiment, I can go hop on the treadmill.
And you can jump in the pool.
Yeah,
jump in the way to the parking lot.
Yeah. During the dog days of summer, that pool and me, we're tight. It's definitely like one of my favorite spots on Rice. And speaking about favorite spots on Rice, do you have any like hidden gem spots you like to go?
I love Coffee House. It's like the student-run coffee house, and the coffee's really cheap.
Yeah, super cheap.
Best
super
latte
good.
On campus.
Best latte. One of the best lattes in Houston.
Yeah,
definitely the cheapest.
They have this drink called the Nutty Bee, which is so good. Do you have a hidden gem spot?
I feel like mine is honestly all of the like Rice's architecture is so beautiful, so I try to find different spots like throughout the year to just go like eat a peaceful lunch. And I'm like continually amazed by how pretty this campus is. I know like because I work in one building and all my classes are pretty much in that building, being a grad student. But like the architecture is so varied, and they're always like, you know, building new things and like, you know, trying to preserve old architecture while being modern. And so there's so many like gorgeous, peaceful places in the city at Rice that are like, you know, cozy and really nice. To wrap up our quad talk, I want to talk a little bit about, we've been grad students for many years now, and so is there any time specific that you can think of that Rice has been able to support you throughout your graduate studies?
The Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies Department, GPS, they are always there for you. They're always a resource to you at any point. As a grad student ambassador, every month we have our meetings with the Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies team, and they're always so supportive. Every time we will have a check-in with how's everyone doing, and they also invite grad students to come to the office at any time for ice cream or coffee.
I hit them up for that.
Yeah, there's always really good snacks in there.
It's so hot here. I need ice cream right now. I agree. GPS, like moving anywhere as a 22, 23, 24-year-old is like a lot of logistical moving, and sometimes health insurance and things like getting your ID card or figuring out where in Houston's a good place to live if you're not going to live on campus or near campus. And they make it all like, they lift a lot of the weight. So, going to grad school is already like a big mental load, like, oh my gosh, like what are the next 5 years going to look like? And so having GPS as, a support system has been really helpful. Yeah.
And as a resource, they're like the hub. Yeah. And they can connect you to any and all the resources on campus, which there are way more than you can even use during your time as a grad student.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another way I've felt supported throughout my graduate studies that's important to Rice is most of the people at Rice, honestly. I think there's very few Rice faculty where you couldn't knock on their door and they wouldn't be like happy to help you if they can, which I think I've had a really positive experience here at Rice, and it makes me think it's especially unique to Rice because it's such a small campus and such a small community, but with so much power and resources and leverage to help its students.
Yeah. Is there any one person that you want to shout out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll shout out some of the older grad students in my lab. I think with grad school, grad students kind of get grad students. It's hard. We've talked about how hard it is in this chat. And so I'll shout out some of the older grad students in my lab for guiding me and kind of showing me the ropes.
same. I also want to shout out to my lab mates, Shay, Josh, Danny, Bella. Let's go.
Yeah.
No.
And the friends I've made along the way, like you.
Yes. Oh. Yay.
That's our quad talk.
Talk.